Hi, I'm Steve and welcome to Greenside Up. Today I'm in the main tunnel making some changes there for the rest of the season. I'll be explaining what I do as I go along and I'll be answering another question in question time. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, and a welcome to all the new subscribers. Let's crack on. Here in the big tunnel I've got my main tomato plants here. These are Crimson Crush. A blight resistant, very early fruiting variety, and I got them started early, so they're now well into it now. And yesterday and the day before I took most of the foliage off the lower branches of these, took all the big fruits off, got them away for processing, and I've made tomato sauce, got that in the freezer. I'm just going to pick off a few more of these that have ripened since I harvested them 2 days ago, and then I'm going to crack on with something else. So yeah, they just need topping out now and a damn good feed, and then I can leave these alone then for another couple of weeks. I think I'll get out of these. We'll see how well they do. Right, these are my free tomato plants. These are side shoots grown on from the main Crimson Crush one. So these are a Crimson Crush variety. They will grow and fruit early, the same as the main variety does. So I should get a crop off these. If I don't, green tomatoes, chutney, brilliant. But either way, I'm going to get something off them. Got fruiting trusses on them now, so we stand a very good chance. So again, plants for free, can't ask for more than that, can you? So next bed up from the free tomato plants, we have dwarf French beans here, and I just sowed those in rows, a couple of inches apart a few weeks back, and then I thinned them out, and the ones on the right hand side are the ones that I pulled out of the ground and moved to keep going. So I should get a nice succession crop there. The ones towards the left will fruit first, and then the ones on the right shortly afterwards. At the extreme left I've got some Oregon sugar peas there, so they're mons too, and we should get a crop in, I don't know, shouldn't be too long now, 2 or 3 weeks I would say. On the next bed over, I've got some seeds sown in here, and starting at the extreme left I've got some wallflowers ready for next spring, and then some sweet williams. They're a bit patchy then, but they're coming, and also for next spring hopefully. And the ones at the end are lunaria, or honesty, whichever you want to call it. So all flowers in that bed for next year. And at the back of that little flower bed there we have some kale planted, so that will grow through the winter, feed us. In the next bed along, this is the bed that since February this year I've been sowing brassicas in all year. I finally cleared it all out, and the trays behind are the resulting plants, or the last plants that I sowed in that bed. I've got a mix of brassicas in there, and red cabbage, Savoy cabbage, kale, cavalliniero, sprouting broccoli and cauliflower. They're all going to be planted out either in the beds outside or in the tunnels, so quite a lot there to get through. And the actual bed itself, I'm not sowing anymore now. I'm going to give it a rest from sowing, but I am going to sow some carrots in there for over the winter. And to make sure I get sort of fully growth, I'm going to grab a stump rooted one, the Chantenays, and I think the one I've got is Chantenay 3 or Chantenay Red Cord, can't quite remember, but we'll see when I come to planting them. But that's what's going in that bed. Right, I'm going a little bit freestyle here. I'm not very good at this, just panning around the camera, but I'll do my best. But this is the grapevine, you can see the grapes developing there, so I'm fairly happy. Still got a bit more snipping out to do. That obviously continues all the way over the top of the tomatoes, full length of the tunnel. You see, it's not a very good shot, I do apologise. But there we go, some of the grapes. Now if your polytunnel hasn't got straight sides, which mine hasn't, it's slightly curved, there can be a bit of wasted space in that curved area next to the edge. So behind the Crimson Crush tomatoes, the main crop, has had this bench set up since spring, and all my plants that were growing on were put on there. You can see now it's empty because most of the plants are out. I no longer need this, so I'm going to pack this away, and all the trays and paraphernalia and all the trays and paraphernalia that go with this, and reclaim this space for other things. The soil underneath there that hasn't been planted in this year, and I can utilise that now. So that's the next job really, is to move all those benches out of the way. Now that we've cleared this back area out, I'm going to sow some seeds in one of these areas, and good autumn crop. It's fennel. I hope you can see that. So I'm going to sow a couple of little rows in here, and once they come up I shall dig up some of them and move them around. They might end up in the other tunnel, they might end up outside, I don't know, but the main thing is just getting some seed actually started. So this is the trick, especially with undercover planting like this, you know, undercover growing, is to keep the crops coming, keep the plants coming. You know, if you see a bit of bare ground, fill it with something. I mean, for one very good reason, it all actually helps, you know, it will actually help cut down on weed problems for starters, but it will just give you more plants as well. More plants, more harvest. So there you go, that's enough of that. So I'll fill the rest of this bed with some other things as well. Some salady type things, probably put some lettuce in there actually. Just label it. Label everything. It's surprising, you think you'll remember, you won't, you'll forget. Happens every time. With the tomatoes under control and defoliated halfway up the stems, this allows light, which comes from the camera's left, to go right the way through the bed and to the bed at the far side where I was sowing the seeds earlier, so they get the light they need. But also underneath the tomatoes there's an opportunity here. I can plant it between the tomatoes, and by the time the tomatoes are finished those plants should be well established and growing away. I mean, I could wait until I took the tomatoes out and then put the plants in, grow them on in pots, but I'd rather have them established in the ground and the roots getting hold in the ground as opposed to in a pot. So I'm going to do that. I've got, I think there's about 18 plants in there to go in. 6 cauliflowers, 6 Savoy lettuce, and then 6 purple sprouting broccoli at the end. And the bed that's just to my right, that's off camera at the minute, same amount of tomatoes, same size. I'll be doing the same with that eventually as well. Changing the use of the polytunnel at this time of year brings back the hanging shelf. So on the shelf now we have a mix of the things that I sowed the other day, and the idea of putting them up here, keeping them out of the way of things like slugs, for instance. So up here I've got some rainbow chard, a couple of different types of mustard. There's Chinese cabbage there, early spring cabbage, spring onions, ishikura, some more beetroot and some more beetroot. So I mean, they're already starting to come up. These mustards are super quick, they're coming up. Just keeps them out of the range. And tomorrow I'm not going to sow lettuce directly in the bed, they're really prone to slugs at ground level, so I'll do them up here. And just while we're talking about slugs, just in case any have got into these trays before I put them up here, what I'll do is I'll put 2 or 3 slug pellets up here and one at either end, one in the middle somewhere, and every day I come down, I'll look at them. If they're not there, I'll replace them and I know a slug is dead. So that's the way. You don't want to put hundreds down, you'll just attract hundreds of slugs to your area. So it's up here, all I need is 3, and then I know what the crack is. And if I get a couple of days where the pellets stay there, then I know there's no slugs up here. I can remove the pellets, job done. Anyway, that's that for now. Right, today's question is about potatoes again, and a writer has written in and asked about his jazzy new potatoes that he grew this year. He thoroughly enjoyed the crop, really, and he wants to grow them on for Christmas. At the same time, he's bought a bag of Charlotte potatoes to grow on for Christmas, and they've come ready chitted, so as he says, they're ready to go. Now, I just want to discuss that for a minute, because farmers don't chit. They take the potatoes and put them in the ground. Chitting has only come about because it's a way of gardeners to get themselves started early in the season. And by earlier in the season, when it's too cold to put the potatoes out, they can put them on a windowsill and see something growing, and they can get something going, and they'll gain 2 or 3 weeks on the harvest date by doing that, by starting earlier. So to my mind, that's the only reason you ever need to chit. I never do anymore. I haven't chitted potatoes for about 5 years. If it happens, it happens, but I don't purposefully go out of my way to do it. Put them in the ground, they'll grow. That's all you need to know, really. So it's the same for your jazzy potatoes. Just plant them, get them going. You don't need chits. So that's that one. Also, he's grown some Sarpomira and what was the other one? Pink Fair Apple. And he wants to know how to store those for next year as seed potatoes. Now, the first thing I must say, and I think I said this on the last video, is that seed potato stock is checked by DEFRA all the way through its growing cycle. That way it can be certified as disease-free seed potatoes and sold in that manner. So as long as you're happy with your potato crop that you had that year, as long as you don't think that you had any diseases, then go for it. Save your potatoes and use them again the next year. If there's any doubt, then don't, and buy fresh seed. Now, the best way to store them is the best way that you store them for when you want to use them. So you'll harvest them, you'll dry them out, you'll put them in sacks, and the best place to put them is somewhere dark, somewhere cool, but where they won't get frost, and where there's a good amount of airflow so that a rot doesn't set in. And as long as they're stored that way and you're using them throughout the winter, then that's the way also to store your seed potatoes. Whatever's left in the bag come spring, they're the ones that you plant, and you don't need to bother chitting. If you can, you'll save yourself a week or two, get an earlier harvest, but again, it's only for the first earlies anyway, and don't bother for the rest. I don't bother, I just put them in the ground when I'm ready to plant them, and it's pretty much that simple. Chitted or unchitted, I'll wait a week or two. I'm not that overly concerned, but once they're in the soil they want to get off and go in anyway. So I hope that answers your question. If anyone's got any other questions for anything that I've done or anything that I'm likely to do, considering what I grow here, then please do send me a question, and the email address to send the questions to is steve.greensideup@gmail.com, and I'll do my best to answer them in a video that's coming up. So that's it for now. Thanks very much.